Hello, thanks for joining us. This is The World Now. Let's begin here in Africa. A growing humanitarian emergency is unfolding along the Chad-Sudan border as more than 18,000 refugees, mostly women and children, have crossed into eastern Chad in just the last 2 weeks. Most of the newly arrived are exhausted and traumatized, fleeing horrific violence in Sudan. Refugees report seeing men killed, women and girls subjected to sexual violence, and an entire village burnt to the ground. Many made the dangerous journey in secrecy, facing robbery, extortion and threats at checkpoints. Some arrived injured, including elderly women and children who fell from fleeing vehicles. Chad is already overwhelmed, hosting over 1.3 million refugees, nearly 800,000 from Sudan alone, since the conflict erupted 2 years ago. The international community is being urged to act swiftly to prevent a deeper crisis in one of the world's most fragile regions. Well, staying on conflict, tensions have erupted in South Asia as India launched missile strikes into Pakistan-administered territory early this morning and killed at least 26 people, including a child. New Delhi says the operation targeted militant infrastructure linked to last month's deadly attack on tourists in Kashmir.
Pakistan called the strikes an act of war and says it has shot down at least 5 Indian fighter jets in response, with debris falling into villages inside Indian-administered Kashmir. 7 civilians were also reportedly killed by Pakistani shelling. India says it targeted at least 9 sites used by militants, claiming the strikes were measured and non-escalatory. But Pakistani officials say mosques and civilian areas were hit, including one location tied to a banned extremist group. Kashmir has long been a flashpoint between these nuclear-armed rivals. This latest crisis follows an attack that killed 26 Indian Hindu tourists in the region, an act India blames on militants backed by Pakistan, a claim Islamabad denies. World leaders are now urging calm. The United Nations called for maximum restraint, while the U.S. Embassy in Pakistan warned Americans to avoid the border region. Meanwhile, Pakistan has reopened several airports and resumed some flights. In India, civil defense drills are underway and Prime Minister Narendra Modi held a top-level security meeting, reportedly postponing international travel. With both nations vowing not to back down, fears of a broader conflict are now growing.
Global Affairs analyst Colin Suwenke joins us live for more on this. Good to have you join us.
Thank you, Precious, for having me.
So we're back to discussing conflict between India and Pakistan. There has been some sort of a respite for some years now. But on this particular attack, India has been very careful to stress that it is targeted, at terrorist infrastructure rather than Pakistani military facilities. It seems like India is, this is some sort of carefully thought of strategy against Pakistan, has put Pakistan on a very tight corner.
That's absolutely correct, Precious. You will recall that this latest mayhem actually took off on 22nd of April, as a matter of fact. And so between 22nd of April and 6th of May, a couple of days back, like you mentioned, they have carefully been weighing their options and strategizing. And then, of course, on the 6th of May, a couple of days ago, they then decided to strike. Allegedly, 9 sites in Pakistan that, are, considered terrorist base. Well, the questions are indeed whether these sites actually are terrorist base, or this, is an opportunity for them or an excuse to target areas in Pakistan that they don't like. Let's not forget, Precious, that both countries are they have nuclear warheads, and so it could very well be that, and that is exactly what some people are claiming, that India is now using this opportunity to target some sensitive sites that are consequential to the nuclear armament of Pakistan. So the blame game, of course, as you will expect in situation of this nature, just keeps going and keep escalating.
And you're very correct to say both sides are nuclear armed. They have been nuclear armed rivals for a really long time. But the Indian Army has said that the attacks are non-escalatory in nature. But do you think that these rivals are on the edge of the precipice of a full-blown military conflict?
If not handled carefully, of course, it becomes inevitable that this is going to, roll into a full-blown military conflict. That region has been fragile for a while. Well, not for a while. I mean, let's recall that they were same country, at some point, and then, later, separated. And since then, they have had this love-hate relationship, but more of hate than love. And so, what we're seeing now is, an escalation of a situation that had been tensed up for quite a while. And so, yes, indeed, the straightforward answer to your question, Precious, is that if this is not managed very well, yes, indeed, it could, degenerate into serious, military conflict.
Now, beyond the partition in 1947 by Britain, the major issue between India and Pakistan has been terrorist attacks, and Pakistan has promised to investigate. It has always denied that it has terrorists in its country, but it also promised to investigate and prosecute anyone found to be terrorists. But can India be both the investigator and prosecutor in these allegations? Isn't it time for other countries to step in?
Indeed. Mediation at this point is the reasonable thing to do. And so when the Secretary General of the United Nations and other major powers, including China, step up, to say, come on, guys, step it down and, let's sort this out through diplomatic means. Yes, they are doing that because genuinely everyone is worried. The region is, very much in serious trouble. And, this also has a very, very serious global effect. And yes, India has ultimately identified two terrorist groups. One of them they called Lashkar-e-Taiba, and the other one is Jaish-e-Mohammed. Now, they have also said that these two groups are part of the 9, sites that they have targeted in terms of their stronghold. So, in a way, people could say, yes, they are taking the laws into their hands, but I do not know, except a tree that is attacked and, it wouldn't fight back. But again, there is no other way than diplomatic, solution in solving this.
But Mr. Collins, is there the possibility of a diplomatic solution? Because again, both countries were partitioned based on religion. India majorly Hindu and Pakistan majorly Muslim. And if you see how the development and progress that, or how the Narendra Modi administration is progressing in terms of how it treats religion, it has clamped down majorly on Muslims in India. And so I'm wondering that if you look at it from that lens, do you see a diplomatic solution?
There is always the possibility of a diplomatic solution, Precious. I mean, there are examples of countries where Muslims and Christians and Hindu live together peacefully. I mean, such examples are dotted all across the world. And so the question is why and how. Now, I say this conscious of the fact that, the Indian-Pakistani idiosyncrasies are such that, they are unique, and therefore makes, a diplomatic solution far-fetched, but it is definitely possible. And ultimately, it would have to, require some give and take. Some give and take in terms of no side of the, country of the conflict actually, getting off the table with everything that they desire. But yes, indeed, diplomatic solution remains the answer, and it is ultimately possible.
All right, we'll see in just 30 seconds, we'll see how Vladimir Putin has now thrown its weight behind India. Does that have any impact, on how this conflict could progress?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, in the meantime, Vladimir Putin has now been known to be, someone with very serious global ambition. He has a cross with the rest of the world, and anyone, I mean, his theory is more or less like the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And so, he tries to get back to the West by supporting countries that are supportive of the West. So, transnationalism is playing out there, and that is what we are seeing, Vladimir Putin playing out in this conflict.
Thank you so much for your time. I'm sure the world is watching with bated breath. Full-blown conflict is the last thing we want, especially in an area that is seen as one of the hottest flashpoints in the world. Thank you so much for your time. Global Affairs Analyst Collins Wiki.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.